So you're saying that the timing decisions of the downgrades reflect monumental bad timing. Why?
That's correct, Tula, because this has been proven several times and there is evidence to this. I quoted in my arguments the report by the U.S. Commission as well as the EU Commission into what caused the crisis as well as what blown the crisis in 2008 and the one in 1997, the Asian crisis. It was because rating agencies, through a process that we call a pro-cyclical effect, when you downgrade a country that is already going through a rough idea, or a rough patch rather. This is quite a significant drive because markets are driven by information. You know that it's proven even in economic theory, in financial management, that markets do trade opinions. And rating agencies, because they have so much influence on markets, people behave according to what they recommend. So when you put or pile bad information on top of other bad information, it actually causes people to panic more and want to step it out of the market.
So do you impute any political or geopolitical reasoning behind the timing being so bad, as you argue in your article? Or is it just a technical issue that, you know, these ratings agencies not taking in as much information as possible and perhaps deciding to hold off on these downgrades? Are they playing geopolitics or is it just technical?
No, far from politics. It's a technical observation, and I think my defense, my evidence is purely technical. Because if you look at what happens, just to quote evidence from the surface, the 10 first countries to be downgraded in Africa were downgraded in the preliminary phases of registering infections on COVID-19, mainly based on the fact of expectation that the pandemic will strain the fiscus of African countries, as well as that the pandemic will also strain the health system in Africa. But contrary to that, I'm sure you can testify that there have been so many observations around the health systems that the pandemic has not hit African countries as much as was expected, because the sentiment was really gloomy that it was going to be very catastrophic. But on the other side, you look at actions that happen prematurely because the conditions or fundamentals of the market had not materially changed during the time that those downgrades happened. And also that you look at the policy response that African countries had put in place. It was premature to judge policy performance before it was even implemented. So that's why I really feel that these downgrades were based on some information that was asymmetrical.
Right. I'll ask you about the downgrade of South Africa in particular, and whether or not the agency, Moody's, for example, had any choice whatsoever in the matter given our circumstances. But before I run out of time, I want to ask you about your suggestions. Among the things that you suggest is issues around regulation of this whole timing of the release of the ratings, and you're talking about deferring of publishing. And I'll tell you now, that's unlikely to find favor, especially among the ratings agencies themselves and other players in international economics.
Well, to me, you see, most of these issues are sentimental. They are opinions and they are perceptions. But if you look at the technical aspect of it, what had really changed before the COVID-19 came when South Africa was downgraded? Moody held South Africa at investment grade, even when we thought that it should have downgraded. And if you want to follow what was happening in the market had already kind of discounted into junk status in terms of expectation. So when COVID-19 came, the downgrading of South Africa during that time, it kind of compounded, because it was also the first day of lockdown. It kind of compounded an already bad situation. And from the context of how these model predictions happen, it materialized in some sense, because that's what the market will expect. But taking into account also that was the time when the rating agency Moody was expected to do its review. So it had an option to either defer and wait for the policy response for South Africa to come into effect, and also judge on how it will perform to that.
Dr. Meshach Mutizge, thank you so much. He's an expert consultant at the University of Cape Town, raising an interesting debate there, Dumi, about the role of ratings agencies, particularly in a time of COVID-19.